Welcome back to the Wellbeing Podcast. Your go-to place for inspiration and motivation and all those practical tips to live your best life.
Absolutely.
And today we're diving deep into something that's probably on everyone's mind as we're kind of approaching this new year.
Yeah.
Goals versus resolutions.
Yeah. It's a big one this time of year.
It is. It is. We want to understand the difference and, learn how to really set ourselves up for success this time around. We've got some fascinating research here that we're going to unpack to see what really, really works.
That's the key, isn't it? What
Yeah.
actually makes a difference?
Exactly.
Because, you see that statistic that 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February?
Yeah.
And you think, really? 80%? Like, what's going on there? Why is that happening?
Right. It's almost like we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah.
So first things first, what is the real difference between a resolution and a goal? I mean, aren't they basically the same thing?
Well, I think of it this way. Resolutions are often these big sweeping statements about what we want to change, like eat better.
Oh, yeah. Exercise more,
Uh-huh.
save money.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been there. We've made those resolutions.
True.
They're great starting points,
Yeah.
but they lack those specific actions in the planning that actually leads to change.
So resolutions are more like wishes,
Kind of.
and goals involve the actual planning and the commitment.
Exactly. You see, resolutions often come from a place of wanting to fix something that we perceive as wrong with ourselves,
Right.
whereas goals are about specific, measurable progress. They're about setting ourselves up for success, not for disappointment.
Yeah, it's interesting you say the fixing aspect of resolutions because our sources actually point out that this mindset can be counterproductive.
Oh, interesting.
That if we start from this negative place, we're less likely to feel motivated in the long run.
That makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like if you're starting from a place of, I'm not good enough, how are you going to find the energy to actually move forward?
Exactly.
And that's where the concept of SMART goals comes in. You've probably heard of it.
Oh, the good old SMART acronym. Yeah. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
I've seen it everywhere. But honestly, I haven't really dived deep into why it's so effective.
Well, each element of that acronym is backed by psychological research on motivation and habit formation.
Yeah.
Like, for example, setting specific goals activates a part of our brain that helps us to focus and to filter out distractions.
Interesting.
So instead of saying, I want to lose weight, which is a very general resolution,
Right.
a SMART goal would be more like, I will lose 1 pound per week for the next 3 months by going to the gym 3 times a week.
Wow. So you made it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to your overall health and time-bound?
Exactly.
And by breaking it down into those weekly targets, you're creating those smaller milestones to celebrate along the way,
Absolutely.
which helps to boost that motivation.
That's so important. It's like giving yourself those little rewards along the way to keep you going.
Totally. It's like those small wins keep you going, and they prevent you from feeling so overwhelmed by the big picture.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Our sources mention that people who set those specific, measurable, and time-bound goals are 33% more likely to succeed.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah, it really is. It really shows the difference between simply hoping for change and actively planning for it.
Totally.
So let's talk more about why those resolutions tend to fail. Our sources mention a few common culprits like lack of planning, unrealistic expectations, and losing motivation along the way.
Right. We might set these grand resolutions without really considering the practical steps involved.
Yeah.
It's like saying you want to write a book without actually scheduling any time to write.
Or figuring out what the book will be about.
Exactly.
Our sources actually call this implementation intentions.
Implementation intentions, what's that?
It's basically planning out the when and where of your actions.
Yeah.
So if writing a book is the goal, your implementation intention might be to write for 1 hour every morning at your local coffee shop.
Ah, I see. So it's like getting really specific about how you're going to make it happen.
Exactly.
I like that.
And it highlights the importance of breaking down those larger goals into smaller actionable steps,
Makes sense.
which is something we'll dive deeper into later on.
Okay, I'm excited to hear more about that.
Okay, so we've talked about the difference between goals and resolutions and the power of SMART goals. It seems like a big reason resolutions fail is they lack this kind of structure and planning.
Yeah, that's becoming really clear now.
What surprises you about these distinctions between goals and resolutions?
Honestly, what really gets me is how much psychology is involved.
Oh.
You know, I used to think it was just about willpower.
Oh, yeah.
But now I'm seeing it's about setting ourselves up for success from the very beginning.
Right. You got to work with your brain, not against it.
Exactly.
Totally.
It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is amazing how our minds can kind of work against us sometimes.
It's almost like our brains are wired to resist change, even if it's for the better.
Well, that's because our brains are programmed to conserve energy
What?
and stick to those familiar routines.
Mm,
That's why setting realistic and achievable goals is crucial.
makes sense. I remember reading in one of our sources that only 8% of people actually achieve their New Year's resolutions.
Wow.
It's a pretty dismal statistic.
It's pretty shocking when you think about it.
It is. It really is. But you mentioned earlier that people who set SMART goals are significantly more likely to succeed.
Right. Absolutely. Those specific, measurable, and time-bound goals tap into our brain's reward system,
Okay.
making the process feel a lot more manageable and a lot more motivating.
So we've talked about the why behind SMART goals, but how do we actually put them into practice? Let's kind of dive deeper into breaking down those goals into those actionable steps.
Okay.
We were talking about writing a book earlier.
Huh.
Where do we go from there?
Okay, so let's say your goal is to write a 300-page book in a year.
Okay.
That can feel really daunting at first.
Yeah, 300 pages is a whole lot of words. I could
Yeah.
probably get lost somewhere around page 50.
Exactly. That's why setting smaller milestones is essential. Instead of fixating on that final page, count. Focus on writing a certain number of words or pages each day.
Okay.
Even just a few hundred words a day can add up to a significant amount over time.
Okay. That makes it feel way more manageable. Instead of thinking about that entire book, I can just focus on like a page or two each day.
Exactly.
What about those days when you're just not feeling it,
Yeah.
you know? Does that kind of throw off the whole plan?
Well, flexibility is key. Life can be unpredictable, and it's important to be adaptable.
Okay.
Our sources emphasize that it's okay to adjust your plan as needed as long as you're still moving forward.
So it's not about being rigid. It's about finding what works for you and your lifestyle.
Exactly.
What about staying motivated throughout that entire process? You know, it's easy to start strong,
Yeah.
but how do you keep that momentum going?
Well, that's where accountability comes in.
Okay.
Our sources highlight the importance of having a support system to help you stay on track. This could be a friend, a family member, a mentor, or even an online community of people with similar goals.
So it's not just about setting the goal. It's about having people to cheer you on and to hold you accountable.
Exactly. Research actually shows that people who share their goals and plans with others are more likely to succeed.
That's interesting. It's like having that built-in support system
Yeah,
to help you stay motivated and overcome those challenges.
for sure.
Our sources actually mention that telling someone about your plan, not just your goal, is way more effective.
Oh, interesting.
Why is that?
Well, it's about creating a sense of commitment and responsibility.
Mhm.
When you share those specific actions and strategies, it's a lot harder to back out or to make excuses.
So instead of just saying, I'm going to write a book, it's more effective to say, I'm going to write 500 words every morning before work,
Mm.
and I'm going to check in with you every week to share my progress.
Exactly. It's like you're making a promise not just to yourself, but to someone else as well.
It's like having a personal cheerleader and a coach all rolled into one.
Yeah.
But what about those times when you hit a roadblock or start feeling discouraged? How do you stay positive and keep moving forward?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember that setbacks are a natural part of the process.
Okay.
Everyone experiences them. And it's not a sign of failure, it's an opportunity to learn and adjust your approach.
So it's about being kind to yourself and not getting so caught up in those moments of doubt.
Exactly. And it's also important to celebrate your wins along the way, no matter how small they may seem.
I love that celebrating those small victories is like fuel for the journey, right?
Absolutely.
It keeps you motivated and it reminds you that you're actually making progress.
It's not just about celebrating the big milestones, it's about acknowledging those everyday efforts that contribute to your overall success.
So even something as simple as finishing a chapter writing for an hour straight or sticking to your writing schedule for a week is worth celebrating.
Absolutely. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth acknowledging. It reinforces those positive habits and keeps you motivated to keep going.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. But what about those people who find traditional goal-setting frameworks like the SMART method to be too rigid?
Yeah.
Are there other approaches that might work better for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's important to remember that goal setting is not a one-size-fits-all approach.
So what are some alternatives to the SMART method that might resonate more with those who prefer a less structured approach?
Well, some people find that visualization techniques are more effective.
Oh,
Instead of focusing on specific metrics, they create a vivid mental image of themselves achieving their goal
yeah.
and tap into the emotions associated with that success.
So it's about feeling the emotions of achieving the goal as if it's already happened.
Exactly. This can create a really powerful sense of motivation and help you to stay focused on your vision.
That's fascinating.
Mm.
Our sources mention a study where athletes who visualized themselves performing well actually showed improvements in their physical performance.
It's amazing how powerful our minds can be.
It really is.
Another alternative is something called habit stacking, where you attach a new habit to an existing one.
Okay.
So, for example, if you want to start meditating every morning, you might stack it onto your existing habit of brushing your teeth.
Okay.
So you meditate right after you brush your teeth.
So you're linking that new habit to an established routine,
Exactly.
making it more likely to stick.
Yeah,
Okay. These are some great alternatives to that traditional SMART goals framework. I think it's important to kind of experiment and find what works best for you.
absolutely. The key is to be intentional about your approach
Hmm.
and to choose methods that resonate with your personality and your lifestyle.
And I think it's also important to remember that progress isn't always linear.
Oh, for
There will
sure.
be ups and
Yeah,
downs,
yeah.
setbacks and moments of doubt.
It's all part of the process,
Yeah.
you know? And it's important to embrace those challenges as opportunities for growth and learning.
So it's not about striving for perfection. It's about consistently showing up and doing your best, even when things get tough.
Exactly. It's about having the resilience to keep going even when you don't feel like it.
Our sources highlight the importance of self-compassion and forgiveness throughout this process.
Yeah.
We're all human. We're going to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
It's about learning from them and moving forward.
Absolutely. It's about focusing on progress, not perfection.
I think that's a great note to end on. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say remember that setting goals is not just about achieving specific outcomes.
Okay.
It's about creating a life that is meaningful and fulfilling.
Mm,
It's about becoming the best version of yourself and making a positive impact on the world around you.
I love that.
Hmm.
It's about the journey, not just the destination. It's about who we become along the way.
Beautifully said.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all your amazing insights. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of goals and resolutions.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Wellbeing Podcast. We hope this episode has inspired you to set some meaningful goals and to create a plan for achieving them. Remember, every day is a fresh start, a new opportunity to make progress towards the life that you desire. Join us next time for more inspiration, motivations, and practical tips to live your best life.